Good morning. Thank you all for making your way to Athlone this morning. Thank you to the NBCO. I'm going to give a bit of policy context. I think many of you have actually contributed to some of these projects, so thank you. And it'll be sort of an update on where we are. Also, I suppose, why we have adopted this three-letter term, MMC, where that comes from originally, I'll cover some of the key initiatives that are underway and the new programme for government. There is a dedicated section on MMC, and then just finish with a couple of points, I think similar to what Ronan and Mairead have covered on your role and some of the changes in the BCMS. So to start, the Housing for All plan, 3.5 years in action. It's an action plan, it's a whole of government plan. I think it's important to emphasise that this is led by the Department of Taoiseach and has responsibilities, actions, ownership across many government departments and agencies, of which the Department of Housing has a number, of course. We have new housing targets, 303,000 to deliver between 2025 and 2030. This is really ambitious. We have 6 billion capital investment this year, which is the highest level of state investment in housing in the history of the state. MMC was identified in the original plan back in 21 as a key measure to boost productivity and reduce cost. And although I suppose the Housing for All plan is focused on housing delivery, there is a wider context of the National Development Plan, infrastructure deficit, but the housing sector is about half the value of the construction sector, and about half the labour force are working primarily in housing, and of course in other sectors. I won't go through all of our governance structures, but just to say that we report to the highest level of government. There is the highest level of oversight on this work, and there is a particular focus on MMC across government. We work closely with the Construction Sector Group, which is an industry government forum for the delivery of infrastructure under the Department of Public Expenditure. And then I suppose within the MMC framework, timber and construction has been given a specific focus by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. Some of you may be involved in the working groups that have a 2-year duration, and I'll mention one of the sort of relevant projects underway there. You all know this, I won't go through, but there is a lot of work being done looking at different challenges. MMC has been recognised as a way to address some of these challenges. I think the labour force is significant. We're a country currently at effectively full employment. The Department of Further and Higher Education have done a lot of work and raising awareness, promoting careers in construction, and I think we have a challenge with an ageing workforce, with working conditions on sites, and we also don't want to take people out of other important work that needs to be done beyond housing delivery. You saw the damage from Storm Éadaoin a month ago, the need to bring workforces internationally from France to support the repair on the grid. And there's a wider context around retrofit, around infrastructure delivery. So, we need to see how we can innovate in housing and in other sectors to manage the workforce contribution there. Productivity and cost, I won't go into. Climate action, again, we have a lot of commitments and requirements coming quite soon from Europe. And also at the national level, we have introduced green public procurement. Those will be commitments from September this year for non-residential and residential projects, and the threshold for those projects will be reducing over the coming years. So the term you may, in documents, have come across some of these terms at the top. You know, there's not a single one way to describe the types of construction methods that we're talking about today. The UK and Ireland do have a strategic cooperation. The Taoiseach and the Prime Minister met in just before St. Patrick's Day. There's a UK-Ireland 2030 strategic cooperation. The term modern methods of construction was developed in the UK, and the Housing for All plan incorporated it, and we have since sort of formally adopted it in policy. And I think that's positive to align ourselves internationally. I think Spain is also using this term now. We do work with other European countries. We meet with our counterparts. And I think the definitions framework has been recognized as the most comprehensive description or set of definitions available, I suppose, that has been developed. In Europe, industrialized construction is commonly used in many Eastern Nordic countries. There is a reference to industrialized construction in the housing ministers' summits, their biannual summits, and they write short reports from those meetings. And there is also a housing and energy commissioner now appointed since the autumn. We're waiting to see how industrialized construction will be captured in more detail in his work. We've also had engagements with the US. They use the term off-site. I suppose that's a slightly narrower description of what we capture in MMC. And we've been on some study trips with them. And there are, so I suppose the different terms have connotations. Prefabs, many of us would have been maybe in school in prefabs. There are examples of, you know, different levels of quality. And as I think Mairead and Ronan have set out very clearly, what we're talking about here is permanent, high quality buildings that comply with the building regulations and have the correct certification. There is just a piece of research there. I've included behavioural attitudes to MMC as so a survey of some of the terminology and some of the thoughts of the public on that. But generally, I think MMC is seen as a positive term. It's neutral, probably at most. There aren't any sort of negative associations, and people do think that the quality is equivalent. So there haven't been any concerns on that. As Ronan and Mairead set out, we published an introductory guide. It's short, it's non-technical, it's approved by government. It's focused on housing and aligns with the UK definitions framework. It includes the 7 categories, but has a bit more detail on the ones that we are seeing coming through in Irish construction. We are looking at an update to that this quarter to pick up on some of the new regulatory requirements coming from Europe, for example, including, I think, additional categories. And just, I suppose, in the sense that housing can lead some of this work, the Department of Education has published a sort of similar guide with for their own use in the schools programme. And we do work with the Department of Education, Department of Health, and others, and some of those are ahead of us in some of the categories. I think 3D volumetric, you know, has a longer use probably in healthcare and education. So the background, it was published, this framework in 2019, developed by the UK government. It was to support, I suppose, the wider ecosystem in an understanding and support the greater use of MMC. As Ronan and Mairead have set out, there's 7 categories and there are 40 subcategories. So if you go and look at the document, you'll see that there are distinctions there. And as Ronan and Mairead were saying, there's, I suppose, a large focus on off-site or pre-manufacturing, but there are also on-site categories. I suppose, product-led and process-led, and ICF, which we're seeing quite commonly used in Ireland now in housing delivery, is a process-led productivity improvement. So it's identified in category 7B, I think. I'll come on to that. So I just thought this text was useful. This was when the UK government published their framework. Why use this term? It's to regularize and refine, create more structured data sets, a common understanding, build confidence, and develop a better evidence base. So I think we'd be aligned with that in our use. Some examples. I know there's going to be a lot of technical presentations today, and I'm sure you've seen some of these types of projects, but I've just added the subcategories as well, just to show, within panelized, for example, you have different levels of completion, as Ronan was saying, and combinations. Many of the manufacturers are going to different levels of completion with external walls versus internal walls and so on. So potential benefits, and I suppose when we published our introductory guide, we call them benefits, but it is important to assess these on a project-specific basis. So these are all potential benefits, but every project is different. We have evidence to support some of these consistently. I think others will vary, but faster delivery has been a consistent benefit, I think, across our social housing delivery. And that's the construction programme, the time on site, as well as the overall development programme. Cost should see reduction in cost with economies of scale if you look at the manufacturing sector. We're not seeing that yet. It's sort of on a par at the moment, but we are seeing greater cost certainty, and that makes sense when you think about the level of design freeze at an earlier stage in a project. We're seeing less variations on site, so greater cost certainty is coming through in the final accounts. I'll come on to that in a minute. Different and lower labour requirements. I suppose a fixed place of work, fixed hours of work, shift work, which might suit some people, machinery to do heavy lifting. So it does give opportunity to bring different people into construction, and greater levels of digitization, which will be attractive to a certain cohort. Regional employment. We've seen their manufacturing bases all around the country. It's really contributing to local economies. High quality, better quality control. I think Martin will speak on that at length, on the factory control, the procedures, the importance of that. Better data, efficient use of resources, reduce waste. That includes embodied carbon, or reducing embodied carbon. So these are just some of the considerations, and I think they'll be covered in the detailed presentations later today. But just something I thought was very simple but very logical, that what should be done in a factory is only what can be done more efficiently in a factory. It's not MMC for MMC's sake. We're doing it to achieve certain benefits. If something can be done better on a site, on a nice summer day, people are outdoors, so be it. I don't think all construction is going to move into factory environment. I'm sure you all know that. But it's to look at where efficiencies can be introduced. And when you do have inclement weather, and you have delays due to curing of concrete on site, and we see in certain areas, northern Sweden, I was there, and there's a logic to being in an indoor environment during the winter there. So it's just about applying, I suppose, the considerations to a project. and understanding that. These will all be picked up during the day, I'm sure, and ones that have come up in our discussions. But I suppose the interfaces and the responsibilities and ensuring that you as building control officers and assigned certifiers are aware of who has responsibility for what, and where work is being done, if it's being done on the site or in the factory. And I suppose, again, the importance of designing from an early stage for this system, considering the construction methods. And something that Enterprise Ireland are working on is the promotion of, with their Build to Innovate initiative that some of you may have engaged with, is the promotion of lean, and that's through design, manufacturing and construction programming. And I think using off-site or MMC on its own without considering the programming, the logistics, the method of the assembly or construction and the inspections and the timing of those, I think it really doesn't work that well. So some of the initiatives that we're working on, and this is across government, this is 18 months, about 18 months old. The MMC, well, it's the roadmap for increased adoption of MMC in public housing delivery. So it was focused on public housing delivery, but it was applicable to all housing. There were 28 actions or milestones under 6 thematic areas. The 6 thematic areas are still relevant, and there is work continuing, although most of those actions have now been delivered. And I suppose it was a useful document to bring together all the different initiatives at the time that were underway. So just to give a sense, and there's probably a few I haven't captured here, but there are a lot of government departments involved, a lot of agencies. Industry have been very supportive and had good collaboration with industry. Lots of acronyms there, apologies, we tend to use a lot of those in our work, but you can see, and some of you will have contributed, as I say, or be working on some of these projects, but there's the Accelerated Delivery Programme, Standardisation, Procurement, Construct Innovate, led by the University of Galway, the Build to Innovate initiative with Enterprise Ireland, Skills Report, MMC Skills, the Demonstration Park, Timber and Construction, pilot projects in the Category 1, 3D volumetric, training initiatives, data, and the Build Digital. So this is one of the lead projects from the roadmap. It was to build capacity in the use of design and build contract, which is the PWCF2, which has seen greater use of MMC. And it's a sort of collaborative project with the Social Housing Division in the department, the Local Government Management Agency, the Housing Agency, and the local authorities who submitted projects, schemes to the programme. So 13 local authorities have schemes in the programme. So there are 1,000 dwellings contracted so far. I think all are one of the forms of MMC, and we should see some of those completed towards the end of this year. And there has been guidance provided by the Housing Agency to local authority procurement teams on the use of the PWCF2. But I suppose what's been really valuable out of that is the establishment of regional contractor frameworks and consultant frameworks, actually. And the local authorities who aren't actively participating in the original programme, 26 are named on those frameworks. Some of the local authorities have their own frameworks, and we're happy to continue with that. But the regional frameworks have values of 250 to 400 million each to be spent over the next 4 years. There have been workshops, regional workshops with each of the regions. I've been to 1 or 2. There've been really good engagement from local authorities. And I suppose to support that, there are a number of documents available, standardised design guidance, not just for those programmes, but more widely for the use in social housing. The Design Manual for Quality Housing, which you may have seen, was originally published in 2022. has been updated, and there are layouts for Category 1 available on the gov.ie website, and also the employer's requirements for detailed design, and there's an update shortly. So just some examples of projects that are being delivered using MMC, and some of the data that we're gathering on some of the benefits. So the programme improvements, the reduction in change orders, and greater cost certainty. And I suppose from building control perspective, those are benefits also, because you don't want to be going out and seeing something on site that's different from the information that you have. You want to be knowing what you're going to see. And the change orders, I think, it's hard to account for the resource that goes into that, as well as they should be cost neutral, but they take up a lot of people's time, so that's a real benefit. Excuse me. Just to kind of, I'll run through these quickly. We carried out a number of cost studies over the past couple of years. This one was the first was looking internationally at using 4 case study buildings from Ireland, and looking internationally at where there were opportunities to reduce cost, and it was focused on construction cost. And we did identify some interesting differences with the 4 European countries. Well, there were city regions, so Berlin, Utrecht, Copenhagen, and Birmingham. These included in scope, specification, size, increased standardization, use of MMC, and we developed a number of actions out of that. A standardized design approaches study, which is ongoing, a design standard for student accommodation. One of the schemes in the cost study was a purpose-built student accommodation project by request from the Department of Further and Higher Education. And we also developed a total development cost study, which was published in the autumn this year. And it goes without saying that a number of the development costs are linked directly to construction. So if we can manage construction cost, there will be other benefits. This is a project we're working on at the moment. A number of you have been involved in stakeholder engagement on this. We're developing block layouts, typologies, components, looking at a number of MMC systems, structural strategy, building services strategy, and costing a number of typologies. We're looking at existing guidance. There are a number of good design guides available. As I say, the Design Manual for Quality Housing from the department, which is for use for social housing delivery. But the Land Development Agency also has an apartment typology booklet, and they're also developing a housing booklet, which they will be using on their schemes going forward. And we were, I suppose, one of the things that came out quite strongly in the stakeholder engagement was the opportunities presented by the publication in January 24 of the Sustainable Residential Development and Complex Settlement Guidelines, and the density ranges that allows now greater density using some of the low-rise, medium density typologies. So we have focused on that in this study. I think further work could probably be looked at on the apartments as well. As I say, there's a design standard for student accommodation. Won't go through that, but it has incorporated MMC and standardization there as well. There is a research project with Construct Innovate, which is one of the 6 housing research projects which were funded in September last year. It's to develop open access standardized design details to support greater adoption of MMC. And it's looking at, I suppose, the existing Agreement certificates and the systems that are being used in Ireland, and what is most market ready and impactful and could support greater delivery of housing. So that work is just sort of commencing and will run for a number of years, and is being led by UCD with University of Galway. The Timber and Construction group, as I say, there are 5 thematic groups. The thematic group 2, for which the Department of Housing acts as secretariat, has a mass engineered timber study. At the moment, it's due to be complete in the next couple of months. It will have recommendations for a national technical specification, and the NSAI's standards teams are involved in that work. But there are a number of other interesting documents coming out of those groups. The TG5, thematic group 5, is those two are published, and thematic group 3 is due to publish on a number of Irish and international demonstration projects. It's due to publish in the coming months as well. So just to wrap up, Programme for Government, there is a section on MMC. Not sure if anyone has read it. There is a new MMC Innovation Fund, leveraging state capital investment and setting binding targets for MMC of 25% for all state-backed housing. Resourcing the National Standards Authority of Ireland. Haven't talked too much about certification, but I know that's going to be covered in a lot of detail during the day. The use of timber, promoting the use of timber, and increasing the training provision, and again, dedicated apprenticeship, internship options for MMC. So we'll be working over the coming months, or we already are, looking at how those can be implemented. So just to finish, as Ronan and Mairead were setting out, there is a planned update to the BCMS. This should support building control authorities' risk assessment, providing more granularity, updating to current construction methods, materials, and I suppose aligning with the terminology that we're using in policy. There will be an ability to update as responses come in and information is available. And there are a number of training and supporting information being developed. So there was a CPD day on MMC last year. I'm sure many of you were at that. There's a lot of good material in that, and they're all available still through the YouTube, which is great. There are a number of short courses, introductory courses being developed. For example, by Laois Offaly ETB, there's an MMC Accelerate platform by SkillNet CETA. They've been traveling around the country. I'm not sure if you've been at any of those events since September, but they're due to launch in the summer. There are other recorded resources such as the Construct, Innovate, Engineers Ireland MMC webinar series. Those are available as well. And they are quite specific, they have sessions on very specific topics such as concrete or timber. The professional bodies are developing CPD. There have been a number of DFMA, Design for Manufacture and Assembly CPDs for architects by the RIAI. And there is research and different resources being put in place, a platform for MMC, so to support decision making on MMC. So that's it. Thank you very much, and hope that was of